The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the science media cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sawagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besije every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back to the Hotline Show. You're watching Digitalk TV. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I am still with retired Major Pollar Awich from the National Resistance Movement. Then Council Gideon Tugume, he's a lawyer by profession, and of course a gentleman from the Uganda People's Congress, Joseph Ochieno. I'm going to come to you, Council Gideon, on the same question, politics of not having permanent friends and enemies, especially in terms of the Kenyan context. What do you think about this issue raised by Mr. himself?
Before, just a bit. Yeah. When you introduced my colleague as counsel, and you said Major Awich from NRM, I feel cheated. No, it's like you give the impression like NRM is a weakly.
It is as if I don't have a political party.
Why don't you say counsel Awich also?
No, I also feel offended. Yes, I also feel offended because I'm a Secretary General of Forum for Integrity and Leadership.
You also say I'm a counsel.
And he doesn't.
I'm also a counsel.
I also have a party.
Can I say this? That in a future UPC government, as part of national protocol, I shall seek to kill all titles, counsel, retired doctor, engineer, so-and-so, professor, so-and-so, and when there's going to be a presidential speech, you know, the presidential speech, the first 9 minutes are used for protocol. You know, no, in global things, including if you learn from Kamala
but you can just observe.
You go and then you go and say, hey, fellow citizens, you're fantastic people in your club. Listen, yeah, fellow citizens and friends, welcome and thank them for coming. Go on to the issues. So, only in Uganda there is a, Right Honorable Doctor, Councillor, Lord Mayor, include the mayor of an LC3 Chankwanzi, Lord Mayor kind of stuff. But anyway, Awich is a council, and he would rather retired major council, particularly we're going to say council. But from today on, Awich, can we actually push aside the retired major one and then keep you the council until further notice?
Why don't I believe that he should be a major? For me, I'm going to give him another rank. But
the problem
is raised it, so
the challenge wouldn't be a major. No, the challenge he retired earlier. No. Because I would expect him to be a general within a few.
Let's give him a general.
The council gives the professionality.
Precisely, that's the point.
Okay, anyway, before I go to the Kenya issue, I would also need to hint on the Israel.
Just a minute or two.
Israel-Palestine issue.
Conflict.
Yeah, because now people just always blame Israel for what is happening. Yes, people are dying in Palestine, but remember, Hezbollah or Hamas are not the official army of Palestine. Yes, Palestine has got an army, it has got the police, but they are not fighting with Israel, if somebody is to remember that. Hezbollah is not the official army of Lebanon. These are people who are organizing themselves to eliminate Israel. Actually, Israel did not start the war. The war was started by Hamas.
No, they started it in 1967.
No, when you talk of 1967, you forget.
48.
Yes,
48, the nation state, yes, but
forget,
at least from 67 is the most contentious.
You forget that some Arab nations, together with German and the rest, killed more than 6 million Jews. They actually eliminated Jews, apart from those who were scattered in different countries. And so they handed over the land to Palestinians to manage the land. When the Jews were not, the Jews were not
killed
there.
in Middle East. These people were not killed in Middle East.
No,
how could they hand over the land?
Can you imagine that?
How could they hand over the land to them when the killing was in Berlin?
No,
killing was in Berlin.
The Holocaust, Germany.
They weren't the British were the ones controlling that.
Now, how did they go? How did they go to Berlin? How did they go to Berlin? People should read history. How did they go to Berlin?
Comrade Awich is asking.
The 6 million.
No, you wait. It's me talking. It's me speaking. How did the Israelis go to Berlin? Was it their land? It wasn't. Then if they went to Berlin, how could they be identified only as Jews to be killed? That was the question. So when they even came back and reorganized themselves, they were again attacked by 7 Arab countries, including Egypt, including what? They all wanted again to eliminate Israel. Until Israel, God helped them and they won the war.
Let's go to the issue.
Yes, but you see, I want to conclude. I want to say, if you come to my home and take my children, my wife, and the rest of the people, and you are hiding them, you are saying you cannot hand them over back, and you think I should wait and see you. Tomorrow you come and take others. That is very dangerous. Okay. So Israel has the right to go and also fight for themselves. These people are trying to, they are demeaning Israel. That's why they have to shoot, that's why they have to do whichever they are doing. And they are hiding under hospitals and the schools so that they can cause that alarm. That is what is happening. But in alternative, everybody has got what he supports. When we were here, me and Ochieno, Mr. Ochieno, we said, for us, we are not for Trump, right? Yeah. And he supported Trump. Yeah. So you can support Palestine, and I can support Israel. There is no harm in that. Everybody has got his own way. Okay. Then in the other one of Kenya, the one of Kenya is actually growing democratically. When you look at what they are trying to do, this is democracy playing its own role. Yes, of course, there are many things that are happening. But when you look at exactly what happened recently, if you are corrupt, they don't have to bring an eye on you. That is Kenya. They said, where did you get all what you have? He said, I got from my family where I'm a hire. And they said, is it her or I succeeded my brothers, whatever. They said, but your brother, how could you be the one having all the shares from your brother? So there are many issues that they are interrogating, which is lacking in Uganda.
Yes.
So for them, they are looking at fighting corruption first, and they are taking a very, very big step. And secondly, to see how democracy can move. When they were running, he was a running mate, but they had a provision that if you are impeached,
yes,
then another name can be presented, and of which the members of the lower chamber can recommend, and then the upper chamber see whether somebody is capable, of which they did. I think that is very good. Yes, it is lacking here, that here everything is in the names of one person. Is the one who appoints, is the one who what, is the one who does whichever. And impeachment of Kenya can also impeach, by the way, President Ruto.
Yeah.
Yes, it can impeach President Ruto. What if we did also the same? They would have impeached him. So much as somebody says that the other one wanted to be the president, but you know, the deputy president of Kenya is as a president as well. He's a running mate. He has got his independent office, which has got a budget to do whichever he wants to do. So me, I don't think that there was something like in fighting on what, but this happened because there was that corruption, which wouldn't be, you know, left moving like that. And I applaud it, and I think it is a good thing for East Africa. Kenya is moving ahead, and we support it to move.
Thank you so much. You hinted on the issue of Kenya as you are starting, but I wanted to also give you a chance to just maybe paint a picture for us.
I'll do that very briefly, but I need to respond to something very briefly on the question of Israel, because it's one of the biggest global issues. From independence, the UPC position has been very clear, and from the Ugandan governance political perspective, I think most governments have taken the position which is much more contemporary, which is actually global majority position, except for extremists in American establishment and a few in Britain, that the belief that Israel as a nation state has got a right to exist from their creation in 1948. At the moment, that is not really contested. And for me, who was then not born, is neither here nor, it's not an issue. So I believe in, and we believe in, and I think Africans should support the quest for a two-state solution in Israel. In the land, the contested land. The business that one side should annihilate the other is not applicable. And part of the problem why I'm insisting on that is that as long as this conflict continues, Comrade Awich, in Israel, you know, and Palestine, there will always be global instability. And like Comrade Awich said at the beginning, is that you know, somewhere, somehow, it will link with American foreign policy, and somewhere, somehow, it will lead to blackmailing the rest of the world in one way or another.
Yes. We
want to be able to see, we need global peace, but we also need peace in the Holy Land. And for me, who is named Joseph, I think I've got the biggest authority, because I am named after the guy who actually looked after Jesus. Yes. So I don't think that there is anybody who can make more claim saintly than myself for need, for desire, for an existence of an Israel and the Jewish state and those Jewish people, one in their homeland and also globally living in diversity with everyone else. Okay. But Arabs and other people and Palestinians must also have the right to self-exist. And by the way, lest other Africans forget, in 1995, a very prominent retired army general rose to the rank of Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin. Rabin took the view, as the Labour Prime Minister at the time, that the imperative was that they needed to talk and they needed to make sure that this went for a two-state solution. He was prepared to recognize the rights and self-determination of the Palestinian people living side by side with the Jewish state of Israel. Now, if Rabin did that, an Israeli indigenous Jew who rose to the topest rank and becomes the Israeli prime minister takes that position, what is an average Ochieno of Nagongera to take a contrary view? Do you know the irony? Rabin was assassinated. Rabin was assassinated by Jewish extremists. So we need to be careful as Africans, jumping on a particular bandwagon, whatever our opinions, and taking a view which is really globally extremist. And for me as a political leader, I need to be able to be bold enough to be able to take that position. Now, that said, on the question of Kenya.
No, but for once, I entirely agree. Not for once.
Always.
One of the many occasions, I entirely agree with him, and I have nothing more useful to add.
Amen.
Okay, so please comment
Amen.
on this.
So on the Kenyan question, not only is it about the politics of civility, for me my argument was that actually from what Raila was fermenting with these cost of living demonstrations, which then the Gen Zs picked and nearly brought down the Kenyan political establishment. Kenyatta and Uhuru, rather Kenyatta and Raila, came in to rescue Ruto, not for self-interest, but I think from the perspective of a Kenyan elite seeing the imperativeness of a continuity of a nation state, and so they wanted stability. In fact, one of the reasons why Gachagua got into problems was for them to see, as I think Comrade Awich and my two colleagues were saying, that Gachagua came in across as much more of an opportunist who sees an opportunity that this guy is sinking, let me position myself to come and take over, not knowing that if there was anything to take over, it would actually almost certainly be ruined as they saw it. Exactly. And so from that strategic national perspective, it was the right move. Fast forward to what has happened now in terms of them versus us. Yes, when politics of self-interest and deal-making from behind back rooms do take place, those are not really decent politics. But when there is a strategic national position for which you see maybe UPC seeks a KY alliance, or UPC seeks to win elections and ask for a government of national unity, and you're doing it in national unity in the national interest to build consensus to govern. You know, that is the politics where I would say they should really not be permanent enemies. And when UPC today seeks for a waking up of Ugandans and mobilizing a critical number of young Ugandan youth and elites and professionals like ourselves to say that, look, we need to find a national consensus in which we bring ourselves across to a national table, in which Ugandan political leaders across the political divide, including in NRA, you know, we have a national conversation to see how we transit post-Museveni and to create a new politics of national consensus. Right. That really should be, in my opinion, the nearest to no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. But where you do the deals overnight to serve your selfish interest, that usually, as has been said, that is dilly-dallying politics and screwed politics, and it should not be the politics that we should encourage.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Joseph Ochieno. Let's delve into the new conversation of the Coffee Amendment Bill. This particular bill has been in the news for now 2 weeks as we speak. President, before he called for the NRM caucus with the NRM legislators, he set out a missive or a document really for us to read through and understand where he's coming from to agree that we should join or dissolve the UCDA and all its functions be transferred to the Ministry of Agriculture. He paints a picture of the money that is spent by the agencies. He says 2.2 trillion is spent by agencies, and the ministry spend up to 2.6 trillion. Yet, some of the roles that can be done by the agencies can actually be done by the ministries. He also paints a picture of the employees. The number of employees in the ministries are around 18,000, over 18,000 employees. When you look at the agencies, they are around 3,900. So when you look at all these expenditure and all this spending, it's too much, especially for government. And that's why they came up with the idea of government rationalization. And he says we should be treating the UCDA issue like we are treating the UPDF at the end of the day, because when you legitimize and you put these issues in the ministry, that means government takes over. That means if government says something, it will be done, not as it is when you are an agency. Because agencies have their own budgets. He even complained in the past of some taxes that were collected by the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, and they came out to actually deny and say this is illegal for them to be doing it. And I don't want to start with you, sir. I want to start with Councillor Tugume, if you don't mind. Councillor Tugume, what is wrong with getting the functions of the Uganda Coffee Development Authority and transferring them to the Ministry of Agriculture? As I point these issues on paper, they look very good and decent. At least, you know, reduce the number of employees when you merge. There is reduction in prices and budgeting and all that. What is there anything wrong with merging the UCDA and to the Ministry of Agriculture?
But the UCDA is the Ministry of Agriculture, actually. who appoints the executive director of UCDA is the Minister of Agriculture. Where does that agency report? They report to the Minister of Agriculture. This is a government agency which was created by government, of which government thinks better. It should be part of it. This is the government program. You know, there are things that we need to really think about ourselves, that we should not intervene in the issues of governance where the government is in charge. For example, if the government says, we created this agency and now we want to remove it for the better of the way they look at it, why are you fighting for it? You know, for us as opposition, me and Ochieno, we always say that the government has done less in most of the using any of their parastatals and whatever. So it becomes so difficult for me to start praising government for having created UCDA. I would even think that they have done nothing. One, we are eating tomatoes from Kenya, we are eating carrots from Kenya, we are getting rice from Tanzania, we are getting onions from Seychelles, and everything. So there is nothing much I would praise the Minister of Agriculture. When you go to the coffee where people are getting money now was not planted during the period of UCDA. This coffee came along, moving slowly by slowly, those who remained with it. In 1903, when K-Borop came and this coffee was being forced on people, they even had called it chiboko. They used to beat people to plant coffee. And people planted the coffee. Yes, people planted the coffee. And when the coffee lost the price, people started cutting off the coffee, like they did to moringa, like they did to vanilla, like they did to the rest of the stuff. So what those who remained with the coffee, because of what happened in Brazil recently, because Brazil got a problem with their coffee. So Ugandan coffee had to go back on the market, and that's how people are getting money. This one of issues of the Maniterimba, the one of the initiative, it is not a government program.
Yeah, that is Buganda.
This is a Buganda program of which UCDA has been giving free seedlings to Buganda without opening up that is for the whole Uganda. Many people grow coffee. When you go to Ankole, they grow coffee. When you go to northern Uganda, they grow coffee. But they never gave them these seedlings. The seedlings were being given to Buganda under arrangement between President Museveni and the Katikiro of Buganda. The unknown arrangement, unknown agreements that they signed. Because President thinks that by promoting such a kind of initiatives, it promotes NRM in Buganda. So by denying other areas the chance of UCDA to do the work of a national work, it has created a problem. That's what is happening. Buganda has been used to get free seedlings.
So Buganda has an interest.
Very much. It is used of getting free seedlings from UCDA, which they have not opening up to Buganda, that we are getting it freely from government.
But they opened it.
Recently, let me tell you, nobody knew that the seedlings were coming from UCDA. No. They were getting the under Maniterimba, and even the opposition MPs, they have been taking this, to their constituencies without actually telling people that comes from the government. Do you know how much is a seedling? One is between 1,000 now and 2,500. Yes, just one, only one like this. Very expensive. But Buganda has received more than 1 million free, which has not been given to Ankole, has not been given to Bugishu, has not been given to northern Uganda. If it was a government program, it would have rolled out the whole country, but never did that. Let me remind you another thing. When they were planning to merge all these parastatals, the list came to Parliament, and the law of merging was passed by the parliamentarians. Little did they know that even this UCDA, which they are fighting for today, is among them. So they just forgot about that. What has been happening is that Buganda passed a budget. Buganda as a kingdom passed a budget of 47 billion for promoting coffee and the other agricultural products. And this money, as we speak now, they are almost asking for the supplementary. So they have been getting this money, yes. under these guys that they are going to buy seedlings, which they are giving them under Mwanyi, whereas UCDA was giving them free seedlings. That's the fight. Now Katikiro calls these people, Buganda caucus, and says, you come, please fight. UCDA should never go. Because they get money from the Buganda coffers in Kuruze, which they are telling people that they are going to buy coffee, whereas coffee they are getting it free.
But you know the allegations you're making.
No, that's breaking news.
No,
that's serious stuff.
But me, I'm
a lawyer. That's
yes,
a lawyer. That's
I've said even that before. If they want, they can do whichever they want to do. Let them go. Is 47 billion of Buganda, which was what in the budget there? It is not there. So where did it go? If it was to buy coffee, whereas coffee was for nothing, then where is it? That you can think that who is fighting for UCDA? It has now turned out to be Buganda caucus. And why? There is the Buganda.
So you're agreeing with the speaker.
No,
the
I'm
speaker
telling
made
you.
some lamentations and statements.
Let me tell you,
Buganda.
the speaker met the caucus before they went even for that debate. And the speaker had to take initiative even of calling the president. And the president talked to Butambara MP.
Yeah, we were told
yes, they
that.
talked.
Yes,
but they could not, simply because they were beneficiaries. They are beneficiaries of getting money from Buganda under the guise that they are going to buy the seedlings when the seedlings are for free from the government. That's why it has never been in any history of Uganda where an opposition has supported the government, has even fought, stopping the government from merging an organization of government, fighting for it. It has never happened. By the way, Katikiro has never written any document as he wrote the document against this. So this was a clear thing.
I thought because the Baganda are mostly coffee farmers and growers.
People, let me give you a story.
You're breaking news that they are...
people who are actually growing more coffee now are in the Rwenzori Mountains. They are the most coffee growers in the country, followed by Eastern Uganda, which is area. Yes. Buganda is not. The Mwanyi which they are talking about hasn't even reached 2 meters high. People nobody has become rich through Mwanyi. Nobody. So you cannot tell people that the government is trying to make people of Buganda poor, when in actual sense they were getting.
They say there is an interest from the first family.
There is a no.
It's genocide. They say there is a PASAID that receives 37 billion for promoting that is headed by the son-in-law of Mr. Museveni.
But that's a different thing.
They are bringing an interest.
You know, they are mixing up issues. You know, much as we're opposition, but we need to tell the truth. They are mixing up issues. Don't mix up issues. We are saying, why are you fighting for UCDA? Not to go back to the Ministry of Agriculture. Because when it goes there, the ministry works for the whole government, doesn't work for one region. They will not allow to give seedlings to only Buganda.
They're saying that now the ministry works for Mr. Museveni because at least
but Mr. Museveni
supervise it very well.
Who brought UCDA?
Mr. Museveni.
Now, if Mr. Museveni is the one who brought it, is it not his thing? He's saying we should take it back. Why are you saying he shouldn't take it back? Buganda has, by the way, I was telling people, when Buganda had the interest in the land, they formed Buganda Land Board.
Yes.
When they had interest in the communication, they created CBS and they created even the Buganda Telefina. When the Buganda had interest in other issues, the education and what, they created the Mutesa One Royal University. Can't Buganda have interest in creating Buganda Coffee Development Agency for Buganda? If I thought that was the issue.
We're going to start from there. And you, Mr. Ochieno, let me...
Let the Congress. I'm enjoying
it. He's the one who comes to people now and say, no, let me come to you.
Go to Congress.
No. Honorable Pollar, why I want to come to you, sir, is because now Mr. Museveni has reached a point of not only sending out these documents, but also calling the NRM caucus. And we always know when he calls the NRM caucus, there's an interest he always has in a parliamentary decision. And this time round is the coffee development, the coffee amendment bill. What is this that Mr. Museveni is continuing to search for in the coffee?
Now, in a minute, I have at the back of my mind this feeling where a contested issue raised in an affidavit would be taken like you have accepted it. So there are some issues which were raised later. I just want to make bullet points on them, then I go to coffee. For example, there's the issue of voting early. If it is in our areas of support, it's not, voting early is not because there's manipulation. It's just we mobilize our voters to go early and vote. So that is my comment. So whether in Tungam they vote early, it is our mobilization. The other thing is the issue of lightning. Lightning and killing people and government policy.
So I have to remind you that these ones who come and they say you've come late, so you have already voted, maybe you print few
that doesn't happen.
Papers.
That whoever comes late will also vote.
Proceed.
Now, on the question of lightning, it is true that government should have housing policy for lightning. Yeah, but also even public houses for disabled. There should be a policy that when you put steps, put the other one for disabled.
Yes, access
but there's also a policy in community places, place for children for playing. So that is it. But what I've always told the congressman and refused is that everything in the country is not in a vacuum. Everything must have a government policy. Now, he only points that when there's a weakness. I have been giving this example that when in a par they actually fight with the Mahdi, they say government has failed.
Yes.
Now, when Toro and Banyoro are peaceful, the government has done nothing. Now, when lightning is there, is when they realize that. That is when they realize government. So when I said that, even the other places which is quiet, it's because government has done its part. So now Congress, you realize that nothing exists in the country out of a vacuum. Now, the other thing I wanted to comment about is the human rights in police. I'm glad the research is saying it is improving. And again, this is not God's wishes. It is a deliberate effort by government. Why? Because government came up with a law which gives personal liability to police under the Human Rights Enforcement Act. It says in the past, if you're a policeman, you go to arrest somebody and break the leg. When you sue such a policeman, you will say, sue Attorney General. I was executing Attorney General's work. These days, the defense of Attorney General is not there. So we passed a law saying, execute your duty, but be lawful. You fail to be lawful, you are liable. Now it is improving. Now there they don't want to say it is government, that it has come by God's grace. Nothing exists in a vacuum. It is deliberate government policy. Okay?
Yes.
I think
let's move on.
I think I wanted to mention those things. Now about coffee. First of all, you called us is Museveni relentless interest in coffee. What next after NRM caucus? Yes, Museveni relentless effort on coffee, and not only on coffee, but to rationalize all government agencies. Coffee is only being picked among the issues to be rationalized. Once again, my colleagues in the opposition are becoming very sensible. Like I'd agreed with Comrade UPC on the Palestine question. I also agree with Tugume on the coffee thing. Honestly, if I have a son and you found it dead and you cry more than me, then there's something hidden. Why? Now, UCDA is a government child. Government initiated it, and government is saying, I take it back. Who are you to cry more than a government? Why didn't you oppose it when it was? In fact, some opposed it when it was being created. Why? They had opposed that, government is starting agencies, there are too many agencies, this agency for what and what and what. It was opposed. Government insisted, let it go. And it was working. Now, in the same sense of government saying, no, we have now a sense it has served its purpose. Because by then, according to President Museveni, the civil servants had a mercenary attitude, wanting to be paid more for them to work. And that's why they created it. Now it has served the purpose. Then if government creates and it works, and you don't want it to be removed. What makes them now not believe that even when we bring it back to the ministry, even after 10 years when we want to remove it, don't. Let it be there.
Why don't your people trust you? Because now this question is a mistrust question. It's not that there's anything you have done or the ministry is contentious. It's just that people don't just trust any idea of putting such an entity to government. They believe when it goes to government, it won't work well. Yet
part of it, he has explained, of personal interest. Where a budget of this was going to that. That is part of it. Okay? Not that there's mistrust. Part of it is that.
No, the people don't trust the government.
No, but he has already put personal interest in figures. He has quoted in figures, and he said figures don't lie. So that is part of the interest. But also, of course, the other interest is that some people tend to move with the crowd, and that's why they tribalize it. They tribalize it. He has explained that thoroughly. That is not only in Buganda. Therefore, the issue of UCDA is a government child. Government put this son there, and it was working. But now, you know, I have always insisted here that we live in a dynamic world. Come on. This road, Karuhanga, you can't even say this road will be there in the next 50 years. You'll find this road is not there. So we live in a flexible, a dynamic world. Now the assessment is that please let us remove it. And the same people after removing it, bring it to the ministry. When it is working after 10 years, you wouldn't be surprised if we want to remove it. Don't. So let government handle its affairs. The other thing is, you are talking of the caucus. There's a total disconnect between the caucus going to Kisozi and Kofi. And I need to make this clear, because if I don't, it looks like there's a ploy. The movement caucus was taken to be whipped to vote. No. This Kisozi trip, I have participated in it. I was eligible to go this time, but I didn't go because I had a function in Algerian embassy. That's the function I told you I met the American ambassador.
Yes.
But this activity in Kisozi, President Museveni came up with it on poverty eradication. He says, when I went to Kisozi, I found the people in the neighborhood poor. I took it upon myself to make sure that this neighborhood, I uplift them. So I have done things there. So he called the cabinet and SEC, and that is how I went. Come and see. We went and saw it. Now when we went and saw it, people dealing in cattle keeping, in coffee and all that around, not only coffee. So when we came back to have dinner, late dinner, because the exercise was long, he said, we are not going to discuss this because there's no time. So what we have watched today, or what we have observed, we shall discuss in cabinet. Then by extension, he says, since the SEC members have been here, but they are not members of the cabinet, I will use my position as chairman of the cabinet to invite you as my guest. Indeed, the next Monday, I attended cabinet on the issue of Kisozi visit. Now, it remained that MPs had not done this. So this is why these MPs were there.
So he called them to just look at the work that they have been doing.
The poverty eradication initiatives they had taken.
So they did not talk about anything coffee there?
There was
coffee amendment bill?
An LC asked.
You are on camera, sir.
An LC asked. An LC person asked that why is, in fact, he asked about the silence on coffee. Why are you silent, not bringing the coffee issue? And was explaining that element. It was from an LC chairman. And that is how it came. But I like to tell you that this visit to Kisozi is a total disconnect with coffee. It had nothing to do with parliamentary deliberations. I have gone in that before with the cabinet and attended.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask you one last question. Ugandans do not want it as Ugandans deep down on ground. Why do you keep on forcing ideas on Ugandans? When shall the government listen to its people, even if it's not, for example, a popular idea, as you may call it as government, but people still want the unpopular idea? When do we respect our people enough to listen to their voice?
Well, when you say Ugandans don't want it, I wonder what yardstick you are using. How you come and measure. that this now not wanted by Ugandans. Let me tell you, if it is legislative assembly, just like the impeachment of the vice president of deputy president of Kenya, you got a big chunk of people against, a big chunk pro. In all legislative measures here, you won't get 100%. Okay? So the group which has taken this view is that you can't say it is Ugandans. If it is Ugandans, if it is Uganda as you say, we put it on the floor of parliament. Let it be debated and it is voted. The procedure in parliament is simple. One, the speaker puts the question. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary. Then they say, now, if you feel the speaker has ruled wrongly, the procedure is that you contest it. That's procedure for contesting. So I do not see why you say Ugandans don't want. How are you measuring? Any piece of legislation, even if tomorrow, okay, we could look at the other paper. Even if tomorrow you talk of, say, the transplanting, what was it called? This thing of transplanting body parts. You want to get 100%. So when some group of people, either human rights activists or conservatives or whatever, come and say we don't want, you just don't say Ugandans don't want. I can assure you, even in Kenya, in the impeachment, there are people who were, I think, about 40 or whatever it is, a big percent. So normally in a legislative process, unless on very obvious legislations, like homosexuality, which again, incidentally, the whole world, not the whole world, the Western world opposed us. It was only in a case of the homosexuality bill that you could see it is called a bipartisan act. It is rare to get a bipartisan, meaning an act of, a proposal in parliament, a bill for that case, a bill which comes as bipartisan where everybody comes together. It's very difficult. Normally, you will have the divide of opinion. Okay. In fact, some opposition take it like it is our work to oppose. Even before government opens its mouth, we have to oppose. So you will always have opposition. Okay. So it is not right to say the people in Uganda don't want. No way.
This time they have not opposed. They are actually supporting, they are actually saying it should come. But my wondering is about direct cooperation, which is for America. In Ankole for us, we did in the American world. It was also merged, I think.
Exactly. Yes. It's also what Mr. Museveni is saying.
Why is it?
Basing on that.
Yeah, why is it?
Yeah, part of this also is that, I agree with you, part of it is also that, remember there's a transition period. In many legislations, there's always provision for a transition. For example, in the Constitution of 1995, when that Constitution was promulgated, there are several transition periods that while this takes off, these old things will continue. Sometimes it has a framework. Sometimes it does what. So even in the coffee, for example, they have a bambanja of 48 billion. It has to be cleared. Then there are activities that were being taken. Okay? So the transition period in this is also to say, while we pass the law, give it time for its effective operationalization. Okay. So transition is there. Right, no so it is not true, Karuhanga, to say Ugandans don't want. Not at all.
Okay, but let's wait and see. Legislators many of times vote things that their constituents did not send them to do that, and that has been on record.
You wait for the vote.
As long as Mr. Museveni says you vote here, he said even when you give me an MP who's sleeping, that's enough.
Let me be honest with you. For NRM, we have met several times. I've been in caucus. We have met several times and persuaded the movement MPs to look at it this way. And we are not hiding about it. This is the party position and this is what we feel can work. We have persuaded our MPs. But still, an MP can vote in its way. So
no,
we wait and see the voting. We wait and see the voting.
Let me come to Ochieno. He says the ideals, but the reality is
we wait and see the voting.
The ideals are your ideals.
But you said
you always talk about ideals. You talk about the law. But the law and the reality on ground are two different things in this country.
I mean, how else do we measure that Ugandans don't want?
I think
by the way, I wanted to ask you a question.
Let me come to him.
Karuhanga, you always ask me a question. Let me also ask you. How did you reach to a position that Ugandans don't want? What measurement did you have?
Yeah, we look at social media, we look at the
social media
and things like that, but let's come to him. But also I think the farmers of coffee in Buganda region did a document of their own, and they're all behind that particular
So
message.
Buganda is Uganda?
But let me come here. Let's first listen to him. Yes, sir.
No, Uganda, unfortunately, is a military dictatorship. And has been for a long time, since Museveni came to power. We tried to persuade NRM to open up. And when we defeated them on pluralist polity, and they reluctantly conceded, there are many in NRM who don't believe in that, which almost certainly believes that because of that, it's easier to get national consensus in the Legislative Assembly. And in fact, primarily for that, I want to suggest that it's actually not true that bipartisan consensus is not common. In fact, in democracies, they're very much common. And in fact, the fact that they're not common here shows that this is no democracy. The more you get politics of issues, the more you get political parties or with specific positions in built on sets of values, as I said much earlier, the more likely it will be the case that when it comes to the question of agriculture, modernization, let me just pick as a subject, as an area. Yes, sir. One, it becomes a manifesto issue. Political parties debates and have these conversations, and in fact, I would have expected this matter to have been a matter for debate by NRM to say that in the next parliament, should we be elected, one of the things we shall do will be ABCD. But this business of waking up when Salim Saleh has sent a memorandum to his brother and they say we should merge this coffee development thing, whatever the merits that my colleagues are saying, and then putting the nation on standstill for 3 weeks, including Amongi speaking some very unfortunate languages, whatever the context, is very unfortunate. I would suggest that a future democracy, these matters are discussed. Now, if you look at the fact that these guys killed the Coffee Marketing Board, Lint Marketing Board, broke Dairy Corporation initially, because the Dairy Corporation that existed at the time in the 70s, I was growing up, I did not have Kwasheko. Today is one of the days national newspapers talk about malnutrition in children, 2 million of them. And I see how I was doing well in Nagongera on average, and I did not see it in Nagongera, the whole of Nagongera. Today, the Dairy Corporation complex is a grinding mill. But really back to this. So if it was done like that, and NRA guys said that at the next parliament, that's in normal democracies, we will do this. Conversations will be taking place today, and then these things should ideally become matters of the manifesto, that we shall put in our manifesto and campaign around it. Once possibly elected, this then becomes the key elements that are going to be part of the legislative framework for the next parliament. In that debate, Comrade Awich, political parties have their positions, parliamentarians have their positions, including the regards of their members of parliament. And usually it will not be uncommon for cross-party consensus, where sometimes these things don't have to go round in parliament. Number two, there are contentious issues in democracies. Things, say for instance, to do with abortion, which is part of a critical thing in American elections tomorrow. Things to do with possibly homosexuality, and indeed actually helping with the evidence. Some of these critical matters, or things with maybe, if they're not subject to referendum, maybe the idea of, say, reducing voting age, for argument's sake, if it's not something that will be subject to a referendum, it becomes something of such a national interest that across the political divide, conversations take place, and then when they go to the Legislative Assembly, you actually find political parties, including governing political parties, but the NRA guys like power. They don't release the whip. I don't know the last time, which there was any legislation in which you said that that members are free to vote with their conscience, not on the position of party whip. So some of these would be cross-party issues in which parties come in and vote. Yes, sir. And there you will be promoting these things of national interest. Now, Comrade Awich says that he was not in Kisozi, and he wasn't. But some of the things that came out of Kisozi were actually quite the contrary. It was very clearly true that regardless of the formalities and whether or not your headline in terms of the subject you're discussing was whether or not legislators were called, it was this thing where Comrade Museveni said it's a fait accompli. It is this thing where Comrade Museveni says that we shall crush them. It is this thing where you talk about it against the background of Anita saying those Buganda. Now, Edgar asked much earlier about these things about trust of the citizens. Many of these things are actually public perception, how NRA has handled situations. Many of these things has been the track record of the National Assembly. Many of these things has been about people's perception of Anita Mong. But then much more finally on the question of public opinion. In democracies, had it been a UPC government governing for only 20 years, half this regime, the political climate would be that public opinion, Comrade Awich and your political external chief, public opinion are not only tested through elections. Public opinion are tested through opinion polls. Public opinion are tested through what he was attempting to talk about, social media, perception, things like that. And I have been at this game for a very long time, meaning that it's not scientific, and you may be right being the lawyer, you know.
Exactly.
But it is not impossible to wake up one morning and say this business, for instance, of invasion of Congo is unpopular. It may be unscientific, but it is actually fair and open, and a university lecturer can go on to his class, maybe even a post-grad class, and say public opinion without, but of course if they are writing, whether or not they make quotations or citations are neither here nor there. But generally, which is a short one for you guys in the Fourth Estate, I am, and I'm telling to people of interest, that one of the few things, Comrade Awich, that you and the three of us maybe need to invest in is supporting these guys not to wait for Afrobarometer stuff. And if there are some guys with some money there, so long as it's not stolen, but whatever money, support Digitalk and support some of us so that we support young researchers, the kind of thing that some of us continue to do privately, but in a very difficult way. So that maybe we come with situations in which people like Mbeja, our fantastic camera persons, do sample opinion pollings. A media house can actually do an opinion poll. So it does not necessarily have to be Afrobarometer. Major publications, as a matter of course, will do the polling samplings. You do calls, you sample maybe across cities and things like that, and you gauge. Now, that is not common in Uganda, partly because of the political and economic mess.
They say they are the silent
And unfortunately
majority.
that.
There are too many, but they are just
But
silent,
it's possible. So,
which I
Comrade,
sometimes disagree.
so to say finally, Comrade Awich, unless you're being diplomatic, the manner of debate that this thing has arisen since the issue of the merging of the Coffee Development Authority thing came up. You yourself know that, and we're not talking about private positions, there's actually something which is unpopular. It may be, and Gideon has been so persuasive today that if Mr. Museveni is watching, Gideon, if he gives you a few billions, share with us. Because the two of you have been the best spokespersons making the case for NRA, including some of your breaking news. Because in a good way.
We have not fact-checked yet.
No.
We are going to verify that.
No, I sort of have a reasonable confidence in the manner in which he presents. Yeah. That actually, if true, then you wonder, who are these funny people who waste our billions in the Ministry for Chris Baromoses and these other ones in funny places? Because many of them serve so NRA, so that they're so blind, they forget, and this is a very important point, that the issues he's raising are extremely important. It's the responsibility of government to inform the population, to inform us, regardless of whatever I absorb, to know the truth. He's given a context, the two of them, which has not been recently presented. But in the absence of some of the facts already raised, this thing is unpopular, this thing is suspicious, there is a view that Mr. Museveni is doing this thing to undermine certain communities, including Toro. By the way, my own home in Agongere was surrounded by coffee, by the way. That's a different thing. And talking about that, you're asking me to wrap some up. There is something that I need to ask Comrade Awich, but maybe it's not for you since you're director external. When am I going to get my coffee seedlings? Number one. And number two, if it is true that coffee seedlings, Mr. Museveni, if coffee seedlings have been given to Buganda and you are going to Bukedi, and Bukedi is the poorest on multidimensional poverty index, then there is a crime you guys are committed. Because we deserve, no, it's important. We genuinely need this as a people of Bukedi.
I've now understood.
The people of Bukedi deserve and need this, and they need an answer.
So that means they should go to the ministry.
No. The point is, why give it to a particular? I know Buganda backed you. I know Buganda backed you in your illegal war of terror in Luwero, and you're giving them this, but you're giving them with one hand, pulling off from the other.
Thank you.
I conclude
that
this coffee thing, Mr. Museveni created this kwango to feed his people.
Okay, sir.
He's pulling it back dubiously. Me, I suspect he's pulling it back in order to control it properly.
Okay, sir. Councillor Tugume, give us your parting shots and give us your last remarks because of time, only because of time.
I personally, on the issue of, because this has been, as he said, you did wrong. Oh, Mr. Ochieno is adding wounds to an injury.
Okay.
You remember what happened. The Baganda war is on UPC, you did ABCD. Now again, when you bring the issue where it involves Baganda, Mr. Ochieno becomes a bit, I really pray for you.
Because I become sad because UPC is Buganda's best friend.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We gave them economic power and we gave them political power that they've never attained to date.
Have I concluded? So I'm really saying that this issue of coffee is a personal interest or a regional interest that was created because some people were drawing some money from two sides. Wow. One, drawing from the Buganda coffers, and again, under pretext that they are buying seedlings for Buganda under Maniterimba, whereas they were getting it from the government. And this is very dangerous. And they are the ones that convinced the Buganda caucus to make sure that this doesn't go. Government cannot always live on the knees of the people who really want to develop their own interest. Okay. We want Uganda at once, want Uganda which is united, and we move as a whole.
Thank you so much, Councillor Tugume. Councillor Pollar, which your last shops.
One, distributing seeds has been done by UPDF under wealth creation. Okay? CDA, Coffee Development Authority, had abdicated from its work. Two, tribalism, Museveni detests it. It shouldn't be brought. Whoever is saying it, okay? Whichever comes from which mouth. I can assure you, there was a time in the past, a certain Minyankole woman who was a soldier saluted Museveni. No, Gamba, she funded. It was a big thing. How? We are building a national army. And that is how Museveni attitude is about tribalism. Okay. Bipartisan can happen. Congress recently, we supported the position that don't elect a leader of opposition. And it was surprised. If Museveni wanted to kill Coffee Development Authority, he doesn't need to bring it to agriculture. Just refuse to fund it. Deny money. It dies there.
Because if he doesn't have interest,
if he doesn't have interest, does he really need to bring it to agriculture if he wanted to kill it? Can't he kill it when it is there? And you blame it on the agency, that the agents are incompetent, they are blah, blah, blah. So why? So it is not true. Now, so knowing that Museveni could kill CDA without bringing it back.
Without killing coffee.
Okay. It is possible that he could do it without bringing it to agriculture. So this other thinking is really government acting in its best interest and the interest of the people.
Thank you so much. That gentleman is a land lawyer, but he's also a soldier, and he's also a former ambassador. He's called retired Major Councillor Pollar Awich. Councillor Tugume Gideon, and of course the gentleman from the Uganda People's Congress, Joseph Ochieno. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. On behalf of Digitalk TV, it is exactly 9 p.m. Thank you so much for tuning in. We shall see you again on Monday at exactly 7 p.m. We're always here having a conversation with Uganda. These conversations, we have them to just make Uganda a better place. We don't try to look fault or blame anybody, but we're having conversations that will make Uganda better for this generation, but also for the generations that are yet to come. From the entire team, a gentleman called Ali was on camera, and of course, Mokose Arnold is in the productions tonight. We shall see you tomorrow again on The Mighty Drive at exactly 8 a.m. We are having a conversation right there, so do not miss it. We shall have a police officer right here. We're talking about issues, fire safety in schools, in workspaces, in homes. How better can we be prepared when that comes about? From the entire team, good night, and God bless Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.